Nobody has done this before, not in this level of detail, not month by month, not with every event placed in its correct sequence, so that the full picture, the real picture, not the fragments that get passed around online, finally becomes visible. What you are about to see is the complete timeline of how Sheikh Hamdan's marriage collapsed. Not the version where it begins with a divorce announcement and ends with a poem, but the real version, the one that started months earlier, that built slowly and inevitably through a series of events that, taken individually, each seemed survivable. Taken together, they were not. Every month, every key event, every moment where the direction of the story shifted, and what was happening inside the palace and inside her at each turn. This is the timeline nobody has given you until now. Let us begin. Three things to understand before we go into the months. First, this is a story that did not begin with a single dramatic event. It built across time, through accumulation, through pattern, through the slow erosion of something that had never been fully solid to begin with. Second, Sheikh Hamdan's second wife was not passive. She was paying attention throughout. Every event we are about to walk through, she experienced it consciously, processed it carefully, and filed it away in the growing case she was quietly building inside herself. Third, the public timeline and the private timeline are different things. What the world saw, the poems, the social media posts, the official appearances, was only the surface. Beneath it, a separate story was unfolding inside the palace walls. We are going beneath the surface today, month by month. January 2022, the year of quiet distance. What happened? The year begins with Sheikh Hamdan's second marriage officially intact. Public appearances continue, official duties continue. From the outside, nothing is visibly wrong, but inside the palace, those who are close to the situation describe a growing emotional distance, not conflict, not argument, but the particular flatness of a relationship that is being maintained rather than lived inside her world. She notices the flatness. She has been noticing it for longer than this, but in January, it becomes something she can no longer attribute to stress or circumstance. It has a quality of permanence that earlier she could explain away. She begins to pay closer attention. Why it matters January is the month the distance becomes undeniable, not public, not spoken, but real. February 2022. The poems that shifted what happened. Sheikh Hamdan publishes several poems during this period. His output has always been consistent, but something in the emotional texture of the verses shifts. They become more specifically about longing, about the love that has roots going back further than the present, about the feeling that has not diminished with time. The Arabic speaking world notices the shift. Fans begin to speculate. Is Naiti her world? She reads every poem. She always has. This month, reading them produces a feeling she has not experienced before. Not jealousy, not anger, but something quieter and more frightening. The feeling of recognizing in his most honest writing that there is a shape to his love that she does not fit. Why it might read? February is when the poetry stops being something she can read generously. The words begin to tell a story she does not want to receive. March 2022, the national mourning. What happened? The passing of the former president of the UAE casts a shadow across the entire nation. For the Maktoum family specifically, it is a period of genuine grief and reflection. Sheikh Mohammed withdraws from many public engagements. The royal family closes around itself in the way that families do during loss. During this period, Sheikh Mohammed begins thinking about the relationships within his family, about what matters, about what has been left unaddressed. Inside her world, she experiences the national mourning alongside him, but notices that grief, for him, seems to be opening something rather than closing it. He becomes more reflective, more internal. She watches him carry something she cannot quite name, and she understands that the mourning period is changing him in ways that will have consequences she cannot yet see. White Mighty Mathematics plants the seed of what comes next. It is the month that Sheikh Mohammed begins to consider speaking to his son about Shaker Shaker. April 2022, the father's conversation will happen quietly, privately. Sheikh Mohammed speaks to his son. The conversation, which we have covered in detail in a previous video, is not a command but a piece of fatherly wisdom. He encourages Hamdan to tend to the relationship with Shaker Shaker, to acknowledge the wound, to go to her. Hamdan listens. He always listens to his father. He begins to make plans. I and Saidi, her world. She does not know about this conversation when it happens. She notices, however, that something has shifted in him during April, a new purposefulness, a sense of direction that was not there before. She cannot identify its source. She files the observation away. Why IT Matter April is the hidden turning point, the private conversation that starts the public collapse. Everything that follows traces back to this month. May 2022, the London trip. What happened? Sheikh Hamdan travels to London. He visits Shaker, his first wife, now living partly in England. The visit is framed as a family matter, a reconnection encouraged by his father. It is not announced publicly, it is not long, but it reopens something that had been technically closed for years, a connection that survives all official redigressions of his life because it is embedded too deeply to be officially redirected inside her world. She knows about the trip. She is told it is a family matter. She accepts this explanation outwardly. But when he returns from London, she feels what she had been afraid of feeling, that he has come back changed. Not guilty changed, not sheepish changed, changed in the way of a person who has been reminded of something essential about themselves. The quality of his presence in the days after is different, warmer, but not toward her. Why it might read May is the month the wound reopens. The London visit does not create the problem. It reveals the one that was always there. June 2022, the poem that changed everything. What happened? Sheikh Hamdan publishes the poem. Written in the quiet of his father's estate in Newmarket, England, the verses are unmistakably about a specific person and a specific, ongoing, undimmed love. The poem goes viral, hundreds of thousands of shares across the Arab world and beyond. Sheikha responds with a video. The exchange is public, visible, undeniable. It's tidy her world. She watches the poem go viral in real time. She reads the comments. She watches Shaker respond. And in the space of a few hours, she arrives at a clarity she has been approaching for months. The clarity of finally knowing, without any softening interpretation available, exactly where she stands. The hoping ends in June. The deciding begins. Why it might or June is the month the marriage ends. Not officially, not yet, but in the only way that actually matters. Inside her. The formal departure is still ahead, but the essential departure happens here. Julia White 2022. The quiet before the leaving, what happened? July is a month of surface calm and interior finality. She goes through the motions of her daily life inside the palace. She is not hostile. She is not visibly different to those around her, but she is thinking clearly, carefully, without the distorting lens of hope about what she is going to do. She begins making private preparations, conversations with her family, the quiet logistics of a decision already made. I inside her world. She is done. Not dramatically done, not in the way that produces scenes or confrontations, but done in the deeper way. The part of her that had been holding on has released. She is simply waiting now for the right moment to move. Why it matter July is the month of invisible departure. She is still in the palace. She has already left. August 2022. The leaving, what happened? She leaves the palace and returns to her family's home. The departure is quiet. No announcement, no press, no dramatic scene. She moves through it with the composure of someone who has thought carefully about every aspect of what they are doing and has made peace with all of it. Sheikh Hamdan is aware. The attempted conversation, the question she asks, the answer he gives, happens around this time. And then she is gone. I inside her world. She feels in the days after leaving something unexpected alongside the grief, relief, the particular relief of a person who has been carrying something too heavy for too long and has finally set it down. She grieves what she had hoped this marriage would be, but she does not grieve her decision. Wyatt might read August is the official end. The month the palace loses a presence, it will not recover. 8 months. January to August. From quiet distance to complete departure. Looking at the full timeline, placed in order with each month given its proper weight, something becomes clear that is impossible to see when you only look at individual events. This was not a sudden collapse. It was a slow, steady, entirely predictable unraveling. Predictable, that is, if you were paying the kind of attention she was paying. Every month added one more piece of information, one more data point, One more confirmation of something she had been trying with enormous patience and enormous generosity not to conclude. January, the distance is real. February, the poetry confirms it. March, something is being set in motion. April, it has been set in motion. She just does not know it yet. May, the wound is reopened. June, the wound is shown to the world. July, she decides. August, she leaves. 8 months, 8 steps, each one inevitable given the one before it. Sheikh Hamdan did not wake up one morning and destroy his marriage. He carried the love that he could not contain for longer than was fair to anyone involved, until the carrying became impossible and the truth came out through the only channel available to him, his poetry. And his second wife, clear-eyed, patient, paying close attention, watched the truth emerge month by month, processed it with a dignity that deserves more recognition than it has ever received, and made the decision that was right for her, not in anger, in understanding, not in defeat, in clarity. That is the real timeline. Month by month, January to August 2022, 8 months that most people have only seen in fragments, a poem here, a departure there, a viral moment somewhere in between. Placed in order, given their full context, they tell a story that is more human, more understandable, and more complete than any single piece of it ever could be alone. A man who loved too much in too many directions to hold it together. A woman who saw it coming and still chose to hope, until hope was no longer something the evidence would support. And the marriage that did not fail suddenly, that unraveled slowly, month by month, in exactly the way that things unravel when the foundation was never fully solid. If this timeline gave you something you did not have before, a complete picture, a new understanding, please share it and subscribe if you are not already part of this community. There are more chapters in this story, and we will cover all of them. I will see you in the next one.